Some breaking news out there for Mississippi State fans. Mississippi State has fired Scott Foxhall as its pitching coach of the baseball team, and we're going to discuss how that happened, how that all transpired, and what's to come for Mississippi State. I'm Robbie Falk here, 247 Sports, the Starkville Daily News. I'm out here at my house. It looks like I'm at a desert. I'm actually in the process of, we've just moved into our new house out here, and I've got some seed to plant. So ignore the red dirt back there. There's a lot of red dirt, red clay here in Choctaw County, but it was too nice to stay inside. I wanted to talk about what just happened with Mississippi State baseball, and it's bombshell news, but nothing that was really unexpected for Mississippi State fans. It was trending towards this for the last several weeks. People knew that the change was going to come for Mississippi State. It is indeed here. The Bulldogs have fired Scott Foxhall as its pitching coach. A move that Chris Lemonis, quite frankly, had to make for his program. And it's tough news for those that knew Scott Foxhall, for his players. Foxhall, a great man, a guy well respected in this industry of college baseball, but just simply was not getting the job done. His pitching staffs the last couple of years have been subpar for Mississippi State. It's a program that has come to expect first-round draft picks, has come to expect really competitive pitching staffs, and the Bulldogs have not been anywhere close to competitive the last two seasons. Last year, Scott Foxhall came into the season, the year before had been the national pitching coach, national assistant coach of the year. Mississippi State won the College World Series. They won the school's first ever national championship, and they had two first-round draft picks in Will Bednar and Landon Sims. Eventually, Sims would become a first-round draft pick the next year on his pitching staff. They had other guys like Christian McLeod, who went on to be drafted. Houston Harding was a guy that was huge down the stretch for the Bulldogs, a former junior college guy who became a huge piece of that pitching staff. And other guys like Stone Simmons, who was huge, and Preston Johnson was big that year. And the Bulldogs just were not able to do anything in 2022, having returned several of those guys. Stone Simmons, Landon Sims both went down with injuries. Brooks Auger went down with the Tommy John surgery. Pico Cone this year has gone down with Tommy John as well. And we've seen Nate Dome go down with an injury. The Bulldogs have been kind of riddled with injuries the last 2 years, but guys have not developed either. So it's been something that's been coming for the Bulldogs. You go from that season in 2021 where you set the NCAA record in strikeouts, and you had such an incredible performance from Will Bednar in the College World Series. Landon Sims was quite possibly the best reliever in baseball that year. Obviously, Kevin Kopps was a guy at Arkansas who I think got the reliever of the year or pitcher of the year or whatever, but Landon Sims was probably the best quote-unquote closer in baseball. Kevin Kopps played a lot of different roles for that Arkansas team. Landon Sims was a bona fide ninth-inning guy and could not be touched when he came in a ball game with a lead. So, you had such a great performance from that pitching staff from Scott Foxhall, and he had some good years with Auburn and North Carolina State and teams like that as well. But after that season, things have really gone downhill for Mississippi State. And you can talk about recruiting, you can talk about development, whatever, but everything Scott Foxhall was doing in 2021 pretty much was working. From then on, nothing's worked. Whether it be the guys that he brought in, the philosophy, whatever it was, it has not worked for Mississippi State. And, from a personal standpoint, from watching, some of these other SEC teams and their philosophy and watching Mississippi State, it really looks like the approach that he's taken with his pitchers has been kind of the biggest problem for the Bulldogs. And in that, I mean, I guess what he's trying to do from a missing bat standpoint. A lot of pitching coaches have the philosophy of just going out and attacking batters. Scott Foxhall's been a guy that's tried to miss bats a little more. He's throwing a lot of breaking balls up there. And with the emphasis from the umpires of the track man, of tightening the strike zone, making sure you're getting strikes right more often than not, that's really hurt Scott Foxhall's philosophy, I think. Trying to locate that breaking ball for strikes, trying to get guys out on the outside corner, things like that. Mississippi State's walking, the walk ratio that Mississippi State's had over the last 2 years has drastically gone up from what it has been. Last year, I think they had 263 walks, something like that. They're going to best that this week. Mississippi State's going to have more walks this season than they did last year by this week, and they still have 3 weeks remaining. So the walks are going up. This is a staff that has the possibility to have the most walks in school history this year. Strikeouts are still relatively high. They're still striking out batters at a pretty high rate, but the walks are killing them. And more often than not, these walks are scoring. So the free bases for Mississippi State have been a major concern, and the earned run average has gone up the last 2 years from right around, just under 4 runs or around 4 runs. The last 2 years have been over 6 runs. And in SEC play, it's been extremely bad. This year, they're climbing towards 10 runs as far as an unearned average is concerned. I think that they will get over 10 runs in SEC play because they got Arkansas and LSU in back-to-back weeks. Both teams can score some runs. LSU especially, that's the best offense in baseball. They're going to score as many runs as they want to, I would imagine, in a couple of weeks. And then A&M, that's a team that can swing it at times as well. So this wasn't trending in the right direction for Mississippi State. Sources have told me that this was something that has been in the works for the last couple of weeks. Mississippi State has planned to move on from Scott Foxhall after the season, but I think the last 2 years have really moved that into overdrive, and Mississippi State needed to make a move now. And I think for Chris Lemonis, you're a guy that's 2 years removed from a national championship, and things have been so bad for Mississippi State that the heat is on him now. The fan base is really not happy with where things are with Mississippi State's baseball program, and his job's on the line. And I think making this move was something that had to happen for Chris Lemonis to keep his job. Now you can say that you fired a coach in the middle of the season. You're working towards having a better product, a much better product on the field next year. That could possibly buy him another year. I don't anticipate them making a change at the head coaching position this year, but you don't know what could happen over the next 3 weeks. If Mississippi State shows no signs of life over the next 3 weeks and they produce 4 straight sweeps, Mississippi State's new AD, Zach Selman, might decide that it's time for a change. But if they show some progress here over the next few weeks and you're going to have a new pitching coach, you have an opportunity in the offseason to make some changes, then Chris Lemonis could probably buy himself another year. But he could not do that without making this change. And I think without making it in the middle of the season, I don't know if things would be the same either. I think making this change in the middle of the season and showing that you're going out there, you're going to try to find a new pitching coach that moves things in a little bit different direction for Mississippi State. And now for Chris Lemonis, you have an opportunity to start gauging interest. It's really not good form for a coach to go out and be actively searching for a new pitching coach. And I don't think that there's a lot of people in the industry that would respect that. If Chris Lemonis was going behind Scott Foxhall's back or something like that, you go try to find a new pitching coach. It's just good to formally get this out of the way and start moving forward with this search. And Mississippi State's got to hire a great coach here. I mean, they got to go out there and get one of the best in the game somewhere. I don't know. I think that they're going to have the resources. They're going to have the money, and obviously the prestige to be able to sell Mississippi State. It's easy to get tremendous talent here at Mississippi State from a pitching standpoint. So you have a lot to sell to coaches. I don't know if you can go out there and get some of the top 5 names in college baseball, because there's some other schools in the SEC and elsewhere that are competitive from a financial standpoint and also from just a brand standpoint. But you can go out there and get some really good guys that can come in here and turn things around quickly. But it's not something that's going to be easy for Mississippi State. I think first and foremost, you got to hire a really good guy. And secondly, the Bulldogs have got to go out there and change things tremendously from a pitching staff standpoint. There's a lot of guys on this roster that you're going to have to replace. And then there's some guys that are going to be coming back that I think can really help you. Some of these young guys that have the ability, I think they just need a new voice in there that can really help develop them and really move them forward. Bradley Lofton, Drangelo Sanja, those guys, Brock Tapper, another freshman that's been really good. Evan Sierra, a freshman that's done a lot. Will Gibbs is a guy that hadn't pitched a lot lately, but I really like what he's got. Some of those guys are guys that you can really work around and kind of be a really good nucleus for you next season. And then we'll see on Nate Dome what his injury situation is like, but that would obviously be a huge piece returning to this pitching staff. Those are some good pieces to bring back. Not sure what Aaron Nixon's plans are. That's a guy that is draft eligible this year, so he could go pro, and you wouldn't have him next year. But I'm not sure what that looks like for you next year. But State's going to have to be very active in the portal. They're going to have to go get some guys that can change this roster quickly. There's not a Paul Skeens from LSU currently that you would look at that's possibly in the portal, but who knows what's to come. There's plenty of guys out there that are right underneath Paul Skeens, though. There's a guy out there that could be a bona fide ace for you in this league. State's got to go get some starting pitching. They got to go get some guys that can really nail things down the back end of the bullpen. They got to get some guys that can change things for you real quickly. And I think that moving away from this philosophy of missing bats and just throwing breaking balls up there for strikes could really help. Adding some more velocity to the staff, adding some guys that can come in there and just overpower people, that can throw the ball in there and let somebody beat you. Throw the ball in there and hit the ball at somebody defensively. Don't worry about missing bats, because more often than not, I always say it, guys are going to hit the ball and it's going to hit somebody on your defense, and you're going to be able to get an out. The best hitters are hitting, outside of Dylan Cruz, the best hitters are hitting 350 or around that mark. I mean, that's about your average for guys that are really swinging the bat well, that are underneath some of those Dylan Cruz freak show types. More often than not, 35% of the time or less, you're going to get people out. So it's never made sense to me to just, try to manipulate a hitter or anything like that. Just attack them. And that's been something that Mississippi State's been missing. We saw it with Tennessee last week. Tennessee, from a pitching standpoint, that's their philosophy. We're going to attack guys. We're going to throw the fastball, try to get it by them, and if not, our defense is going to make a play. And their defense hasn't been that great this year, but they're sitting there right now feeling pretty good about themselves because they swept back-to-back opponents, and their pitching staff has been a big part of that. So for Mississippi State, it's getting back to that philosophy and getting back to the thought that, we're just going to go beat you on the mound, because the last couple of years, the philosophy that they have has just not worked. But wishing Scott Foxhall the best. I never like to see coaches lose their job, especially guys like Scott Foxhall are well respected, just a class act individual. I hate that this didn't work out for him, but this is a result-oriented business. This is the SEC. This is Mississippi State baseball, and it's not going to be accepted to have back-to-back pitching staffs with an earned average over 6 for the entire year. And that's not even talking about SEC play. So tough news for Scott Foxhall, but this is something that had to happen for Mississippi State. And the process now begins for Chris Lemonis. This is the most important offseason of his life. And, still has 3 weeks remaining, and he's got to show some progress the next 3 weeks too. Because with this fan base, he's not out of the woods with a lot of these fans either. There's a lot of fans that are calling for Chris Lemonis. I think that he's probably going to get another year, and he's kind of afforded now the opportunity to go find a replacement for Foxhall and try to fix this mess that is Mississippi State's pitching staff. But he's got to do it. Got to hire a big-time guy as a pitching coach. Got to go out in the portal and really recruit hard there and change and transform this pitching staff, because what Mississippi State has is just not sustainable in this league. So we'll see what he can do there. As of right now, I'm not expecting a change at head coach, like I said. So for State fans out there expecting a change, I just don't see it happening 2 years after national championship. It's tough. It's tough to imagine that because Mississippi State's been so bad. But Chris Lemonis, I think, is going to get another year. I don't think he makes this change at pitching coach right now without that assurance. I think that's probably going to happen for Mississippi State. And there's a lot of pieces there for the Bulldogs on this roster to be competitive next year, but the pitching staff has got to change drastically, and we'll be following that closely. For more reaction, we have a lot of stuff going on 247, so make sure you're over there checking us out and getting our thoughts over there. But other than that, just wanted to stop by real quick, give some quick thoughts on Scott Foxhall's exit at Mississippi State. And in the coming weeks, of course, we'll be monitoring this pitching coach situation, seeing who Mississippi State possibly has lined up for that spot as well. All right, guys, appreciate you. Stay tuned for more updates on Mississippi State sports right here on YouTube.